Should you let your starting pitcher hit in the lineup, or should you put them on the bench the day that they pitch? Let's talk about the pros and cons of different lineup strategies when batting your pitcher. All right, so I think this is a fair question. Like, should we DH our starting pitcher? Should we DH all of our pitchers? If I let my pitcher hit, where in the lineup should I put them? Does it matter? These are all good questions. But number one, as a coach, whatever it is that you decide, I would just have a quick talk with your team about this and say, hey, if you're starting, here's what you should expect. Either we're never going to let you hit when you start, or we will let you hit when you start, but we're going to move you down the lineup. So understand it's not we're not saying you're a worse hitter, or we're not saying like you're getting punished. We just want to have our starting pitchers hit sixth or later, because that's going to make everything easier for you to focus on pitching in the beginning. So just understand, if you start as a pitcher, you're going to be batting lower in the lineup that day. So whatever your policy ends up being, I would just be upfront and communicative with your team so they understand and they say, okay, this is what I should expect, and we're good to go with it. Let's talk about some of the pros and cons. So the pros are obviously everyone wants to hit, right? So it's more fun, and especially younger levels, players, it's not as big of a deal, and you want to let them hit and let them have as good of a time as they can. And I think we all know that most of the time our better pitchers who end up becoming starting pitchers, they're usually our better athletes on the team in general. So we don't want to lose that bat in the lineup. Most of the time, our best pitcher is also one of our best hitters, just kind of how those things work. Not always, but often. And so you want to keep that bat in the lineup, right? You don't want to have, okay, we lose our best bat every time our best pitcher pitches, for example. But then at the same time, does it distract your pitcher from pitching their best? Is it too hard physically and mentally? So let's talk about some of the negatives, some of the cons of batting your pitcher when they start. So yes, it can be difficult to do this mentally. It can also really wear you out doing both. You get a bunch of hits, you're on the base paths a bunch, you're running the bases when the inning ends. A lot of times you're just running back to the dugout, huffing and puffing, catching your breath. You barely get a time to get a swig of water or Gatorade, and then you're running right back out to the mound. Especially on hot days, that can be really challenging, and you don't want your pitcher out there having just gone first to third and thrown out at third base, so the inning ended, and they're out there huffing and puffing as they make their first warm-up pitches, and maybe they're still tired and wound up, as this next inning goes on. And I think it's safe to say that pitchers are going to fatigue faster when they're doing both. And so instead of getting maybe 6 good innings out of them, maybe you only get 5 good innings out of them. Or there's just more rough innings in there because it's tough to, refocus mentally to physically. Also, you can take your bad at bats onto the mound. Pitchers, when they're younger, players, when they're younger in general, have less emotional control. So they're going to do this more often, right? Shohei Ohtani is probably not going to be worrying about his strikeout when he goes back out to the mound, right? He's a professional. He's got extremely good emotional control. But for a 13-year-old or a 14-year-old or a 10-year-old, if they just got rung up on a bad call in their last at-bat, they made the third out of an inning, now they got to go pitch, they still might be steaming about that at-bat, whether it was the umpire or whether it was their own, just a rough at-bat where they struck out. And now they're still stewing about that, and they're not refocusing on pitching, and they walk the first batter, or they give up a cookie, and just so there's a lot of that. Now, the other side of that is, maybe that's good. Maybe that extra challenge, the extra things going on makes them more resilient. And it's a good teaching moment where you say, hey, you have to learn to compartmentalize better. You have to take that deep breath. You have to remind yourself to push that out of your mind and refocus on the task at hand, the present moment. Real quick, if you enjoy my videos here on YouTube, check out the join button below. You'll learn about my channel memberships, where you'll get access to hundreds of videos not publicly visible here on YouTube, and tons of other free perks for the baseball coach, player, or parent. So check out the join button below, and I hope to see you here as a channel member. I mean, overall, you're going to have more physical and mental challenges when they hit and when they pitch. Does that mean you should take them out of the lineup to do that? Not necessarily. It really just depends on the age of your team and reading the room. Now, let me give you my take on when you should bench your pitchers. I think at higher levels, like 15U and above, I think it makes sense to bench your starting pitchers. And for me, that's what I did on my teams. And we made it a policy, and I like policies to dictate playing time more fairly. And so one of our policies was this. I said, hey, if you're going to pitch on Friday, you're maybe going to be sitting Thursday. It depends, but you're definitely not playing the full game at shortstop on Thursday. So we might sit you half the game, or maybe you DH on Thursday, just so that you can be fresh and ready for Friday. And so pitchers understand this. Part of being a starting pitcher especially is there's going to be times when I have to sit the bench because coach wants me fresh and they want to keep my arm healthy and they want me to pitch my best. So we had a policy, if you were starting on Friday, you were probably either DHing on Thursday if you're a valuable hitter, or maybe you play the first 3 innings in the outfield, but probably not, because really I want you to be resting your arm on Thursday. So then Friday comes along, you're not going to hit for me. I'm going to have you DH'd for, so therefore someone else on my bench gets to bat that day, right? So now rather than having one player who gets to pitch and gets to hit, now you get your fun pitching and someone else gets their fun hitting, right? It just gets more playing time. And if I hold that policy true for everyone and don't make exceptions, then no one feels unfair about it. They know, hey, I'm a successful starting pitcher for this team, and that's an honor to be in the rotation. And one of the caveats with that is when I pitch, I'm focusing only on pitching and I don't get to hit. And as a coach, it can be really important sometimes just to look for places like that where you can say, hey, this is how we do things to make sure everyone gets their bats and everyone gets better, because our goal is to develop players and not just have a bunch of players who are wallowing on the bench, not getting reps. Now, say you are going to let your pitcher hit, which I think, again, is totally fine. If you are going to let your pitcher hit, I definitely say you should bat them lower in the lineup. Number one, if you're the visiting team and they're in the top 3 spots, they're going to have to be out there getting ready to hit rather than getting ready to pitch. For me, and this is the way all pro players do it, all the way all college pitchers do it, and this is the way I would train my pitchers to do it, is if we're the visiting team and you're the starting pitcher, you're going to still be in the bullpen when the other team when the the top of the first is happening and the other pitcher is throwing their first inning. So you'll probably pitch until 1 out or maybe 2 outs, and then you'll walk into the dugout. So you only have to sit for maybe 5 minutes or 3 minutes before you go to have pitch the bottom of the first. Now, if you're in the top 3 spots in the lineup, you can't do that. So now you have to warm up even before the home pitcher is done, so that you can be in the bench getting ready to hit and focus on your bat. So now you might have a really long gap between when you threw your last bullpen pitch in pregame to when you're pitching in the bottom of the first inning. So I definitely say if you're going to start your pitcher, they need to hit probably 6th or later. That way they have a pretty long gap. They can still pitch a little bit, pitch out there in the bullpen till 1 out. Then they can walk in, and if they're batting 6th, they still have like 4 more batters probably until their spot comes up, and that's fine. You just don't want them to be sitting for forever, which they'll probably have to do if they're in the top 3 spots. Now, if your home team, it's a little bit different. It's not going to affect them as much, but even then, it's better just to let them get through the first couple innings entirely. But it just says, hey, first priority today is pitching. Second priority, distant priority, is hitting. All right, so what are my recommendations? So number 1, read your team. Understand, who are you? How old are you? What do we expect? How good is our hitting pitcher? And I'd say just make a policy. If everyone hits, then okay, we all hit. If no one hits, then no one hits, right? We all get DH4 on the day that we start. As far as relief pitchers go, I wouldn't worry too much. I would just leave them in there, let them get their bat. It's not a big deal. But in general, just figure out what makes the most sense. Sometimes you have a stud pitcher and you want them in the lineup and the team wants them in the lineup too, right? Other times you might just think it's best for your squad, especially if they're a little older, that starters focus just on pitching. But if you have any questions, be sure to leave them in the description below. Leave me a comment. Be sure to join my channel where you'll get access to tons of member-only videos on deep dive, baseball topics, drills, lots of sort of stuff there. Subscribe if you haven't, share it with a friend, and I'll see you here in the next video.